see you there. I have a burning memory of the little time we shared when I sailed the inland sea, and the evening is so new. I search for your warm light to come shining through. These misty Huron nights can chill you to the bone. The waves can seem so restless when I sail alone. I've been too far from shore, so far away from you. I'm waiting for your bright light to come shining through. I've seen so many passing ships slip through the night. Who knows where they've been or where they're going to? Each one is searching for their own guiding light, waiting for that lamp light to break through. Passing day, no matter where I roam, this fragile craft that's sailing has become my home. I've been too far from shore, so far away from you. I'm waiting for your bright light to come shining through.
Welcome to Presque Isle Lighthouse.
What's it like living in a lighthouse?
It's heaven. I love it here. Been here now 17 years, and my husband and I were here 14 years together, and then he had a massive heart attack and died January 2nd of 92, and then my kids talked me into coming back in here, so here I am. I'm still here, and I don't have the heart to say no.
Well, what's it like at night when you're out here by yourself?
It's peaceful and quiet. Very quiet. And the water just lullabies you to sleep.
I understand there's something unusual happening here. Can you tell me about it?
Oh yes, we have a spirit light here. My light comes on up in the top of the tower every night as regular as a clock. It goes off at daylight and comes on at dusk. And there's no power and no bulb to the top of the tower, but it's on. It started in May of 1992, right after my husband died in January of 92. And everybody figures that it's him up there. This is my husband, George Paris, up there on the fireplace. And he's the one we figure that is behind all this. And, well, he's an electrician. Who else would know how to turn a light on but God, an electrician? The boats out there in the fog, they can't see their way, and yet they say my light guides them into the harbor. How it does it, I don't know. But they said one party come in here and thanked me for my light, And I says, what do you mean? She says, we were out there, and she says, we did some awful tall praying, because she said, we didn't know where we were at. She said, we had no idea where we were at. And she said, all of a sudden a light seemed to appear. And she says, we started to follow it. And she's pretty soon, we stopped the boat and looked, and the light stopped. She said, they started the boat up again, and it led them right into the harbor. And she said, when we got into the harbor, she said, there was no more fog, and the light was gone. And she said, it was really strange. So I've had several people that have come in and told me about my light. I feel like it's a protection, and it's a peace. I don't know, there seems to be a peace about this place. A lot of people have said the same thing. They come here and they says, it's so peaceful here. They says, it's just like being a part of heaven. We've had psychics here, we've had ministers here, and they can find nothing, but they can feel a presence. And they said it's not evil, it's just something that they can't explain. And I can't. It's just one of those things.
Can you tell me a little more about the psychic that was here?
She was here. First she walked into the bedroom, and she said, did he ever sleep in here? And I said, yeah. He says, he used to lay down there in the afternoon. She says, I can feel him. She says, I've got goosebumps all over. My granddaughter was here, and she wanted to go ahead and go up the tower, and her mother and her decided they were going to go up, and I'll let my daughter-in-law tell you what happened.
when my daughter was a year and a half, almost 2. We come out here for the 4th of July picnic. Well, I took my daughter up to the top of the lighthouse to watch fireworks, and as she got to the top of the stairs, she started crying and having a fit. And I said, "What's wrong?" She goes, "There's a guy standing there." Well, at that time, I didn't see nothing. And I go, "Okay, we'll take you back down." I took her back down and got her calmed down, and I asked her, "Who is it?" And she goes, "It's a ghost." I said, "What did he look like?" And she said he was tall, had snow white hair, and a beard, and he wore glasses. And I said, and I said, "Crystal, is this Grandpa?" And she goes, "What do you mean?" And he had passed away before she had got to see him. And she went, and I showed her the picture, and I said, "Is that him?" And she said, "Yes, that's what he looked like, only he was brighter white." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "There's no problem." I said, "You just tell Grandpa to leave you alone or Grandma's going to get him." And from then on, she can go to the top of the tower with no problems. With no problem at all. She's up there all the time now.
That's short enough.
That light seems to come on right up there somewhere. It just seems to, doesn't seem to penetrate from the glass or anywhere. It just seems like it's just right there. And there, you see nothing from the grounds or nothing from the top of the tower. They've seen it from the air. We've had the Air National Guard come in here, and they tell me they can see it from the air when they fly over at night. The Coast Guard lists it as an unidentified light. It's the only way they can explain it. But that carries about 10 miles out across the lake. And the freighters can hear it, and they say it'll vibrate right through their boat, right through the big freighters, and down in the engine room. Anybody up here? She's closed. Good night.
this letter that came from an elderly man. It says, Dear lady, please know, I heard you lived in a lighthouse where I had lived years ago. I'm getting old and I'm slowing down, and in March I'll be 83. I'd sure like to write to someone like you who lived in that lighthouse like me. So I wrote to this kind and gentle man. His letters continued to come. They were letters about a lightkeeper's daughter and the life of a lightkeeper's son. We remembered the lighthouse journal on a desk where our daddy would write, neath the brilliant glow of an Aladdin lamp that cast shadows of him in the night. We remembered the sunset ritual when the American flag came down. In triangular shape it was folded, and not once did that flag touch the ground. Did you climb the stairs to the lens room, I asked, and sit by your daddy's knee as he lit that great white mantle? And did you gaze at the freighters at sea? Did you watch through your bedroom window at night rays from that lighthouse tower as they fingered their way through the rain and the fog, hour after hour after hour?
Of course, they built the original lighthouse in 1870, and that's the lighthouse keeper moved over here from the Old Presque Isle Lighthouse. It was built in 1840. It was down the street a mile to the south. This had to be quite an improvement. He had a large family, 10 children, and he raised them all in this house right here. So this is much as it looked in 1870. It's still got the cedar roof on it. We restored that. It's probably the same. Looks the same as it did then. Take you inside the museum here. If you come up into the museum, we've got a hand-carved wood replica of a lighthouse keeper. There it was. Weighs about 500 pounds. It's out of one solid block of hardwood. But he's got the uniform right down the pad. He's got the K on here for the keeper and the lighthouse emblem on the hat. In fact, it was done from a photograph. I didn't think I was that good looking. If that's good looking.
How about this stove here? That's quite a piece.
Yeah, that's probably the type of stove they heated the lighthouse with back. This one here was made around the turn of the century, 1900. It's a round oak. It was made in Kamyzek, Michigan. It's a premier line of parlor stoves. And I've got some information out here. I believe the stove cost $65 when it was new. It weighed 550 pounds. And you heat that cast iron up and it would obviously stay all night long, you know. These are models of the two lighthouses at Presque Isle here. This is a model of the one we're in right now, and then this is a model of Old Presque Isle down the street. You kind of get a comparison to the sizes. Well, that's a foghorn type hand-operated. You just have to press down and gives you. This is another foghorn type device. They had all kinds of noise to make noise in the fog. Of course, they had to come up with some you couldn't see. I can see that. These are some of the ships around here, the Bradley and the Cedarville, and both ships out of Roger City that sank back in the 50s and 60s. There was a great loss of life in the area here when the sailors didn't survive some of those sinkings. And yeah, that's a phone off a ship. This is the earliest type phone off a ship they had here. This used to run, this hose would run all the way from the captain's quarters back to the engineer. And he could give him a signal, back up, go forward, whatever the signal was, and this hose all connected, ran all the way through the ship, and then, or they could talk through it, like an early telephone, they could talk in it, and I've only got the one piece of it here, but I'm sure that on the ship there was, you know, it ran all the way And all the way through there. These are dinner bell. This is what when the cook got dinner. He walked up and down the hallway, he's ringing that bell, and then we're alerted it's time to eat. This is a can. Now this is an old sounding can because it's got like a blunderbuss barrel on it. Now we fire this for different occasions here. We just powder it up and put a fuse in there, light her off, and put some wadding down in there, and it really smokes it up. They used to use cannons as fog signals way back before they had foghorns and stuff. They would fire blank cannons. This is a roll top desk that's similar to the one that the lighthouse keeper had here. I've got photographs that show that. He had a lot of record keeping and logs. He kept a log every day of what ships passed by here and all that stuff. And so he probably had a lot of paperwork to do. This is a oil can that has U.S. Lighthouse Establishment on it, so this is probably took oil to the lanterns at one time. Well, they probably had wind-up Victrolas like the one in the corner over there, and I'm sure they had they had a library. When the lighthouse tender came, everything came by ship, and they would stop in once a week or so and bring them supplies, coal and oil, and they would bring them books. I assume they did a lot of reading, you know, and they would trade the books back off and get new books. And it was probably a pretty lonely life out here, but with a big family, and there were a few neighbors in the area, sawmills and stuff, so I'm sure they all got together. And, you know, it was just known to be a lonely life, a lighthouse keeper. As they climbed at least 3 times a day that I'm aware of. They had to climb it in the morning to put it out, climb it in the evening to light it, carry oil with them every time. And then before he went to bed at night, he trimmed the wick, they said. Make sure, because if it went out during the night, that wasn't what's supposed to happen. So he generally either stayed up at night, or if it was a calm night, he could go to bed, but he had to make sure that light was burning all the time. One lighthouse keeper was here back in the 30s. He put a mirror in that big old tree over there. And in the mirror you could see from upstairs, because when you're underneath the lighthouse you can't hardly tell if it's on or not. So he fixed this big mirror up, and he could sit up in the bedroom up there in his rocking chair and look out the window and see if the light was on. I thought that was quite clever. In fact, there was an Indian. His name was Vince Newagon, and he was one of the only Indians in the lighthouse service. The upstairs were the sleeping quarters, and there's 3 or 4 bedrooms, I guess, laid out. This is where the whole family slept upstairs. We've restored the back with some antique beds and some furniture and dressers and different things they might have had back then. This little cradle here has those slats over, and that's where they used to put cheesecloth over to keep the flies off the baby, probably in the summertime. This is a collection of foghorns and steam whistles that I've collected over the last 10 years. And a lot of these are off of sunken ships, fishing tugs, steamboats, you name it. Everything had a whistle. And we can operate these with compressed air. It just takes a little bit of volume. Give me about a couple minutes to bring up some air pressure there, and then we can give these a little toot. These are a little bit bigger ones. That's off the Kendall, a fireboat on the Detroit River. They scrapped that boat up in the Alpine area, and I was able to get the whistle off it. This is off a Japanese freighter, and I had to wait till I get a few more pounds of pressure. It takes about 30 pounds to operate that one. And when they were on the steamboats, they operated at 150 pounds, so they were probably a lot louder than they seem now, because they had to be loud, of course, to hear them for miles up and down the lake. This one's off a ship that sank out here in 1909 and built in 1880. It was a Thu. But years ago, a diver brought it up. And this is the one from Ireland. This is off that Japanese freighter.
we remembered the painting in summer of roofs, ceilings, walls and all doors, windows and all the baseboards, and they even varnished the floors. Then on to the signal and the boathouse, other small buildings too, flagpole, tram car, railings. By the end of July, though, they'd be through. Then in August, they'd whitewash that tower on a scaffold with a big brush in hand, and their arms and legs all covered with oilcloth as the black flies covered the land. And when the brass was all polished, the lighthouse tender would come, and aboard would be the inspector. Thank goodness the lawn mowing was done. The keeper would talk with the captain, a man you just knew you could trust. But I never did see the inspector, did you? He was probably looking for dust. Ah, but when that old ship departed and Old Glory flying astern, black smoke belching forth a salute, and that mournful salute in return.
All the wood contained in this home is of white ash variety. Built 1896. All the original wood is still standing. Been covered over the years with layers of paint and varnish.
And you're restoring it?
And currently restoring it, yes.
And what's your name?
Bernie Kamyzek. The construction consists of 22-inch thick brick walls with 2 dead air spaces in between. We've got a full basement, this level, an upstairs level, and then an attic.
Do you get any appreciation for the way they must have lived by living out here yourself?
Oh, most certainly. We've got it easy compared to what they had back then. Being the fact that it was a duplex, it involved having 2 families here, the lighthouse keeper and then probably his assistant. And with the operations that they had here, they've got they had the foghorn house. When the coal shipments didn't arrive from Detroit on time, the guys that were here working, living, whatever, they had to scurry up and down the beach, either looking for driftwood or else go into the woods and look for deadfalls to fire the steam boilers in order for the foghorn to function. The shoes belonged to my wife's father when he was just a little baby.
Do you have a natural love for lighthouses, or?
Well, I never did before, but as the situation was here, I came along as a handyman. My wife was widowed at the time, and after a couple of years of being the handyman, I ended up being the husband. So now I do have a love for the lighthouse. These were to allow persons to have privacy in their room, but also to allow for heat. Right here, our wood burner right here, all winter long.
Does that keep you warm enough all winter?
Well, with our thickness of our brick walls, once we get the heat up to where it has to be, there's no problem. It's just a matter of keeping the fires going. This is a wedding present given to me by one of my cousins, Steve Watuki. See? And give you an idea of what it was to log back in the days of horse and sled. The white building here, this 2-story building, was originally built, and it housed the workers, and it was also their eating facility and sleeping facilities. Later on, I believe it was turned into probably a horse stable back when they needed the horses to get back and forth to town. the mini greenhouse is tomatoes. Tomatoes that are still growing. And it's a mild 75 degrees inside right now as we speak. Well, we grow a variety of herbs. Most of our vegetables that we can consume during the summer: lettuce, carrots, beets, peppers, tomatoes, spinach, Swiss chard, beans, peas, all evidence of which is mostly gone by now. That's all we got left now is to cover up some carrots for during the winter harvest. And that'll be about it.
Do you do some canning then?
Oh, my wife does the canning, yeah. I do the growing. That's part of the program. I grow it, she cans it, and then we eat it, share it. Jake, the wonder dog. Wonder what he's going to eat next. He's about almost a 3-year-old blue Doberman. Here we have remnants of the Joseph S. Fay. What part we're not sure of. Could be some of the main decking or some of the side walls. Went down in bad seas and they were towing a barge. And the winds turned and became inshore winds where the captain decided to head out to sea, deeper water. And in the process, by the time the barge caught up with the ship, the slack drew taut and the back end of the ship came off and sunk. Part of it is in the water and 15 feet. This part came to rest on shore, has been here ever since.
And when did this go down?
1905, October 19th. That particular day, there was possibly close to 40 ships that went down. This building housed the foghorns that were powered by the steam engines, 2 steam engines. Coal shipments would come in from Detroit, sometimes on time, other times not. It's acoustically designed on the inside, similar to the outside, and the concrete walls are tinned over to resonate the sound. 2 portholes off the front end towards the lake would open up and they would emit the sounds generated by the foghorns. And yes, it does resonate the sound, as you can well tell. It was an aid to let the ships know in proximity where they were from this sound. We did it from this building in fog conditions.
We remembered that gray-painted fog signal room, especially when the fog rolled in. Daddy'd fire that engine and turn that big wheel, and then the noise would begin. And when the pressure was up and the governor spun and everything ready to go, oh, I'd cover my ear. I'd be so glad he was near, for soon that foghorn would blow. He remembered one night in the thickest of fog, a steel freighter southbound came through. Unaware that a pulp boat was anchored offshore, it crushed that pulp boat in two. The keeper went out to rescue the crew, but by that time many had drowned. He did what he could to save the last few by rowing them back to safe ground. Oh, I wish I had just one single button from the uniform my daddy wore. It would serve as a constant reminder what the lighthouse service stood for. Well, there are letters and albums and scrapbooks in museum halls, you will see, where historians have carefully placed them for the next generations to see.
Well, this is Middle Beach Lighthouse as I knew it. We grew up here. I was one of 12 children. It's a duplex, or was a duplex. It's now been opened up into one single family home, but my Uncle Tommy Brander was the lighthouse keeper in charge, and my father was the assistant keeper here during my growing up years. It's a beautiful old home. We used to play a lot on the cellar doors here. There was a pump right up beyond the doors. We had two outhouses where we had brick outhouses here instead of the garage. Beyond that, we had somewhat of a farm. We had a couple of cattle and some chickens and a very large garden out beside the big rock out here. Big rock that you see over here was a wonderful part of our growing up years. As one of 12 children, when we were very young, we had to learn to climb that. The older children would never help with getting up that rock. We had our steps of first grade, second grade, third grade when we would make it so far. And when we eventually reached the top, that was really a milestone in our lives growing up. And each of us had to do that. I don't know if that was Dad's idea as a youngster or not, but it was just very wonderful to get up to the top of that rock. As a child, we thought it was, of course, much bigger than it is, but it still is pretty impressive and hard to climb for me. The children that live here now have a little house here. There's 4 lovely little children that own the home now or live here, and they've got a little screen house where they come in here and play. Isn't this wonderful? Oh gosh, this is great. We used to have houses, but we would just sweep the forest floor, and we would bury our hazelnuts every year. So when we would come back each year, we would have the dry hazelnuts that we had buried the year before, and often forget where we buried them. But Very similar to this and very much in this location. It was right beside the rock where we had our little houses and our separate rooms. And here we have a little oil shed that's just exactly like it was when we were children. Dad was always mixing the heavy, strong paint, government paint that everything was painted with, coat after coat every year. So that was full of all sorts of paints, and always a fascination for us to watch him mixing his paints. Now underneath the porch here, it's I don't know if it's the same lattice work, I don't think so, but that was a very private place for us to have our little houses and to spend a lot of time with all those children. Uncle Tommy had 4 children, and of course they were like our brothers and sisters. And other than that, we didn't see children. We rarely went to town. If you saved your shoes, we had 1 pair of shoes a year. And if you saved them, that was usually when school started, why then you could go to town with Dad, and many times they were worn out and you just didn't go. That was the criteria for going on the launch with Dad, to going to town or to going someplace. It's kind of fun. Looks like the children here are carrying on the same traditions that we did. We had a lot of tree houses. This is a wonderful one, especially with a view such as this where the freighters go by on the upbound. We were never allowed to take the boats out without permission. Of course, Dad was very strict about that, but this particular time I disobeyed and I did take the boat out with this 12-year-old cousin of mine, and we lost an oar. A storm came up, which it often does, very suddenly on the water. You might be out there and within 15 minutes or so the weather could change. And we lost an oar. We were out in the channel and one of the big freighters was coming right at us. We were very close. I can remember the crew scurrying around and had ropes along the side as we coasted along the side of that ship. And we ended up drifting off to a light just below the channel here. And I hung on to that, and Dad came with the government launch, and of course he docked the boat immediately at the quarter dock down here, the quarter boat dock, and I was paddled royally for having disobeyed him. An experience I never forgot, and of course I didn't take the boat without permission after that, but he was very strict with us, with the water. People have asked me why I paint or why I got started painting. I think part of it is that you had to keep busy, or you occupied yourself. You had your own imagination here in this island. And I'm sure that has something to do with my artwork. All of our family have a creative side. One's a writer, another one carves fish, but we all do something creative. And I think that part of it is that we had to entertain ourselves here in this island. We had our own life here. We had, of course, in the early days, there wasn't a road to us, so we rarely saw people. We used to do a lot of things to entertain ourselves in the evenings. All I can remember is kerosene lamps. We didn't have electricity that I know of. Dad would read the paper with the light of the kerosene lamp at night. Everything inside was polished. Everything was the brass, the dustpan. My older brother talked of his job, one of his jobs being of polishing the brass. So everything was highly polished. The floors were varnished, linoleum floors varnished over coat after coat. And of course with that government paint, everything was usually painted up and beautifully kept.
guess we could talk by the hour, huh? Of lighthouses, ships, the sea, and of our father, the lighthouse keeper, and that maritime history. Yes, I am a lightkeeper's daughter, and you, a lightkeeper's son. So to those men and their wives who gave us our lives, their spirit still carries on from we, the keeper's kids.
Every port of call, I think I see you there. I have a burning memory of the little time we shared. When I sail the inland sea and the evening is so new, I search for your warm light to come shining through. Misty Huron nights can chill you to the bone. The waves can seem so restless when I sail alone. I've been too far from shore, so far away from you. I'm waiting for your bright light to come shining through. I've seen so many passing ships slip through the night. Who knows where they've been or where they're going to? Each one is searching for their own guiding light, waiting for that lamp light to break through. Every passing day, no matter where I roam, this fragile craft that's sailing has become my home. I've been too far from shore, so far away from you. I'm waiting for your bright light to come shining